Hi, I'm Ken Sapola, and this is the Tasting Room. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about wisdom, and our scripture is going to be based out of Proverbs chapter 4 and the 7th verse. But before we begin, I want us to take a second to just relax, breathe, set our attention upon Christ, and let's just receive everything that He has for us through the Word. So what I want us to do is I want to lead us into a little breathing exercise that'll get us to just relax. Think about something here. When you are in fear, what happens to your breath? Your breath changes. Some people get they gasp. They take that one quick shot of breath, or maybe they even lose their breath. Their breath like and screaming if they're in fear, or maybe it's really shallow. Same thing when there's stress or anxieties, the breath kind of gets short. But when you're at rest, what does your breath do? It's shallow, but it's rhythmic. So it's like a breathing in and a breathing out. Some people snore, so don't do your snoring with this sleep breathing exercise, but get your breathing to be rhythmic, like as if you're sleeping, and just relax your body. And there's scripture to support this, and I'll share it with you. But for now, just take a second, cast away all distractions for a minute. If you're looking at multiple devices, turn off all the devices and just focus on breathing for a minute. And what I want you to do is just breathe in deep, not too deep to where you expand your lungs to like a painful expansion, but just to where it's comfortable. And then release the breath to the point of, again, where it's comfortable. So breathe in and out and just relax and cast all your care onto Jesus. Now breathe in and breathe out, casting all your care on Jesus. Something that I like to share with this breathing exercise. This is how I approach the Word. I come relaxed. If I can't relax, coming to the Word, I kind of feel like I'm missing some things. But every time I come to the Word and I just take a second to breathe and relax and see Him taking all my care, it's like just more gets revealed to me. And that's really the point of these videos, is that more gets revealed to you. We want Jesus to be revealed to you in greater light and greater measure. And so use this exercise and see what it does for you in your own personal studies. But in Genesis, you remember where God breathed the breath of life into man and he became a living soul. He breathed this breath. So when I say picture Jesus breathing into you, it's scriptural because he already did it once before and he's doing it now. But I want you to focus on him breathing life into you. So as you breathe in, just see him releasing himself into your lungs. As your lungs expand, it's his breath filling you. And now when you release your breath, as you're breathing out, see his chest expand. He's receiving your breath. Now what is he taking from you? He's taking your cares. He's taking your worries. He's taking your anxieties and your stress. See him breathing it all in. And then see him breathing out again, and you're breathing in fresh life, new life. You're getting new things. It's just exactly the way that the trees work, with how they release fresh oxygen and they absorb our carbon monoxide and, again, turning it over into fresh oxygen for us. Jesus is that tree of life, and he breathes fresh life into you. I'm going to have to do another video on teaching on this breathing, the breathing exercise. It'll really bless you, seeing Jesus as that tree of life giving you that fresh breath. So once again, breathe in, Jesus breathing in and you breathing out, him receiving all those cares and anxieties. And now that you've taken a moment to relax, and you know that somebody else needs to hear this part, so why don't you go ahead and share our channel with all your friends, put it on your Facebook feed or Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat, share it in all your social media areas, and text it to your friends. Make sure you hit like and hit the subscribe button, and hit the little bell so you get notified on new videos, and so you can get notified on that breathing teaching when we post that. So stay in tune with everything we have going on here. So now, if you haven't already, grab a piece of paper, a pen, or whatever you're going to take notes with. Open your Bibles, open your hearts and your minds to the revelation of Jesus Christ through wisdom, the wisdom of God. So again, we're going to start in Proverbs chapter 4 and the 7th verse, which reads, "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding." I've said this before, I'll say it again. I'm reading from the King James because when I do the study from Greek or Hebrew into with the English, it helps me with the study. It seems to translate a little easier for me. So again, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. I've titled this message today, Competing Wisdoms. Competing Wisdoms. There is a competition that for your life, for our life, and not just coming for our life only, but it starts in our mind. That we have there's this competition of these wisdoms. What do I mean that there's multiple wisdoms? Yes, the Bible clearly talks about these two different wisdoms that exist, and that's where we're going to go today. Is we're going to talk about these two different wisdoms that are in complete competition for our mind. These wisdoms want our mind, and one of them we want to give over, and the other one we don't, obviously. So let's define wisdom just real briefly. And then we're going to go into this competing wisdoms. Wisdom, I'll read it from the English definition: the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment, the quality of being wise, the soundness of an action or decision with regard to the application of experience or knowledge. I like that one, where it says the soundness of an action or decision. So obviously, if you've ever looked at a Strong's Concordance or a Thayer's, you even look at Webster's, you see that one word has a variety of words to define that one word. And so I'm just going to focus here today on the soundness of an action or decision. Wisdom defined here is about making a decision. You have a decision to make. And we see here in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. Get that. Wisdom also has been defined as being the choicest part. We have a choice to make. We have an option. And that is, we can either choose wisdom, or we can choose the other wisdom, or we can not choose anything at all. The choice is really ours. This wisdom is making a choice. It is the soundness of an action or decision with regard to the application of experience and or knowledge. Seeing that wisdom is the principal thing, therefore we should get wisdom. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. So right here in this verse, it's saying that it is the choicest part. I want to go into this word principle. Let's examine this word principle real quick, and I want to write it out for you on what it looks like in the Hebrew. And it is Reshit. Reshit. And this might sound familiar to those of you who have been watching our videos from the word Bereshit, and we're going to get into that here in just a second. That's because it is the same word, Reshit. And what does Reshit mean? It means beginning, top, chief, and choicest part. It actually says choicest part. And so if this is the choicest part, that means there's other opportunities. That means there's other parts that we can choose from. This is the choicest part. This is the best cut. So you want this wisdom. This wisdom. Wisdom is the principal thing. This is the godly wisdom that is the principal thing. This is the choicest part of all the type of things that are available to you, the wisdoms that are available to you. This wisdom right here is the choicest part. It's the best cut of the cow. So this word principle is Reshit. Now, like I said, it sounds familiar because of Bereshit. So all we have to do is put a bait in front, and it gives us the same word that we've discussed before that we find in Genesis chapter 1. And so the way that this would look is that you would just put a bait in front of it like this. So this bait would sit right in front of the Reshit, so it becomes Bereshit, which still means beginning. top, chief, and choicest part. So what's interesting is, why would there be a bet there? It doesn't change the definition. It doesn't change the meaning if you study it out. But if you take some time to think, and you take some time to really meditate on God and His Word, and you ask Him to reveal these kind of things to you, He'll show you, and He'll open it to you, and He'll shed light on these dark areas or wherever these shadows are, answering our questions. And what He showed me is that this bet, I mean, it really has there's a lot of revelation to this letter bet being in front of Reshit. But in regard to what we're talking about today with getting wisdom and the competition of wisdoms, this bet is the number 2 in Hebrew, and it is the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And it also means, because it's the number 2, it also means that there's plurality and duality. Plurality or duality. And so right there in the very beginning, God had intended for us to make a choice. He gave us the option. So what we see here in Genesis, going back to Genesis, if we're not going to go through Genesis right now, but if we were to go through Genesis, go through it after the video to see what we're talking about. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Bereshit. Why was bet there? It is to prove that He gave man the opportunity to make a choice. That he's going to have an option. No other creature on the planet or even in heaven have a choice. Well, really they kind of do have a choice, but they don't really have the freedom of choice. They can make a decision. I mean, like Lucifer, he made a decision, but there was immediate repercussions for that decision that he made. He had the ability, but he didn't have the right. Man has the ability as well as the right to choose, because He made us in His likeness and His image, and He gave us that freedom to do so. When He set man in the center of the garden, there was 2 trees that there was 2 trees in the center of the garden. You have the tree of life and you have the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, man was not supposed to eat from, but the tree of life man could have eaten from, because God said, of all the trees in the garden you may eat, but this one, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you will not eat from. So even the tree of life was available to eat from, but the tree of knowledge of good and evil was not. Here was the option. Here was the duality. Here was the plurality. You can choose life or you can choose death. I said it before you. And so sin was not in mankind. Sin wasn't even in the earth. It was just on the earth. It was once man made the decision, because God made man to be the head over His creation. He set him over the top. He put man as the chief over the earth. And so when man made the choice, they went with the option to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's when sin entered into man, therefore entering in through all creation, because it went in through the head first, and then it affected everything else. So I point that out just to say that even in the beginning, there's a little secret here on why bet is in front of Reshit, and it's because it was a show of options. God was giving, already from the beginning, an option. The Bible says that the Lamb was slain before the foundation of the world, because He knew what He was going to come up against. He knew what was going to take place if He had given man the option. But out of His love, which is His character, His nature, He is love, He went on with it anyway, because you cannot experience true love if you are a slave. You can only experience that true love if you are free. If you're a slave, then you're only loving this other person because you have to. But if you have the choice to, that's where true love is, and that's what God wants to experience. That's what He wanted to experience then, and it's what He wants to experience now with us personally. Isn't that great? So here's the plurality, the duality, the bet in front of the Reshit. So still the word is still the same. It still means beginning, top, chief, and the choicest part. So because wisdom is now, so we see here that wisdom is the principal thing, wisdom is the choicest part, there must be another option. There must be another choice. Well, let's look at James chapter 3, and we're going to read from verse 14 to verse 17. James chapter 3, verse 14. But if you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descends not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And so we'll stop there. But you see the comparison between these two wisdoms. It says here in James that this wisdom does not come from above. It does not descend from above, but it is earthly, sensual, and devilish. So you have two wisdoms that are in competition for you. These wisdoms. So since wisdom is it's the soundness of an action or decision, it's judgment. This means it's a mental process that takes place. It's a thinking that takes place because you're making a judgment based upon either belief system, previous experiences, or something that so based on belief systems or even previous experiences on whether something is good or not good, or whether I should go this way or I should go that way. So these wisdoms are coming after the mind. They want to go into the mind. So what are these wisdoms? Well, you see one that descends from above, which is first pure, then peaceable, and gentle, and good fruits. So you see how there's a lot of fruit to the wisdom from above. But the wisdom from below is envy and strife. Sensual and devilish is not a very long list, but it's very bad words, you know. I mean, you don't want this lower wisdom, but this lower wisdom is after your mind, and you ought to know that. But so is the wisdom from above. And I want to show you the comparison between these wisdoms. Let's go back to Proverbs chapter 1. Proverbs chapter 1, and we're going to read from verse 20 through verse 22. Wisdom crieth without, she uttereth her voice in the streets. She crieth in the chief place of concourse, in the openings of the gates. In the city she uttereth her words, saying, How long, ye simple ones, will ye love simplicity? And the scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. So a couple of things to point out within these verses is wisdom crying out. She's uttering her voice in the streets. She's crying in the chief place of concourse. The chief place of concourse. In the openings of the gates. In the city, she's uttering her words. And she's calling out to the simple ones. How long will you love simplicity? Now look at Proverbs chapter 8. Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 1 through verse 5. Doth not wisdom cry, and understanding put forth her voice? She standeth in the top of high places, by the way in the places of the paths. She crieth at the gates, at the entry of the city, at the coming in at the doors. Unto you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of man. O ye simple, understand wisdom, and ye fools, be of an understanding heart. Again, here's wisdom. What does not wisdom cry, and understanding put forth her voice? And where is she? At the places of the path. She's at the top of high places. She cries at the gates, at the entry of the city, the coming in of the doors. So it's in the very beginning. Wisdom is crying out in the very beginning. We have chapter 1. We have chapter 8 talking about wisdom crying in the chief place and at the beginning of the city, the beginning of the gate. And who is she calling out to? O ye simple. O you simple ones. So in chapter 1 and chapter 8, we see this pattern of wisdom, that wisdom is calling out, that wisdom is at the top place, at the entry of the city, and calling out to the simple ones. So go to Proverbs chapter 9, and we'll look at verse 1 through verse 3. Wisdom hath builded her house. She hath hewn out her 7 pillars. She hath killed her beasts. She hath mingled her wine. She hath also furnished her table. She hath sent forth her maidens. She crieth upon the highest places of the city. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. As for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him, Come eat of my bread, which I have mingled. Forsake the foolish, and live, and go in the way of understanding. I went a little bit longer because it's the Word. The Word is always good. And where do you stop? Well, we have to stop at some point, so we're going to stop right there. Here we are. We have chapter 1, chapter 8, and chapter 9, with wisdom being busy, crying out, calling unto the simple ones, and calling out to all men to come unto me. Forsake the foolish, and come eat of my bread, and drink of my wine. And here we just read in chapter 9 that she's hewn out her 7 pillars, she killed her beasts, mingled the wine, furnished the table, sent out maidens, crying out in the high places. Wisdom is diligently crying. Wisdom is diligently seeking us and wants to help us make right judgment, make the right decisions, and to put us in the right place. But now let's look at who is her competition. Who is her competition? There is a competition. There's the choicest part. We just read the choicest part. Let's see what the competition does and what the competition looks like. And you find that over in verse 13 of chapter 9. Proverbs 9, 13 through 18. A foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing. For she sitteth at the door of her house, on a seat in the high places of the city, to call passengers who go right on their ways. Whoso is simple, let him turn in hither. And as for him that wanteth understanding, she saith to him, Stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he knoweth not the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell. You see, there's a diligent woman, and there's this foolish woman. These are the two wisdoms. Notice that the diligent woman that comes from above is first pure, peaceable, full of good fruits. She is diligent. She has worked hard. She is standing at the gates. She's at the pinnacle of the city. She's on the high points, calling out to all men, calling unto the simple ones, hewing out pillars, preparing a meal, grinding down the grapes and slaughtering the calves, and she's sending out her maidens to bring in the simple ones to come in and dine with me. She's worked for it. But look at what the foolish one did. The foolish woman is just laying out, all sprawled out, and all she uses is scents and sights of colors, and she just sits there. And she says, Come unto me, simple ones. Come unto me, stolen waters. Come unto me and get stolen waters because it's sweet. And bread that's eaten in secret. It'll be pleasant. So you can see the comparisons between the two wisdoms. The wisdom from above, the choicest part, is serving you wine that she made herself and bread that she served herself. But the foolish, the devilish, the sensual is talking about the stolen waters. It's not even wine. She's going to give you water and it's stolen. And then she's given you bread eaten in secret. So these wisdoms are in competition for our soul, for our mind, so that we can make certain judgments and certain calls. Clearly, if you go with the wisdom that is from above, your paths will be made straight. Your way will be made right. But if you go unto the devilish, the sensual, the earthly wisdom, the wisdom that's from below, it says, He knoweth not that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of hell. And that's exactly where that lower wisdom leads people, is into the depths of hell and failure. So, there are two wisdoms competing for your mind, the wisdom from above and the wisdom from below. I make a call out to you to receive the wisdom from above. Receive the godly kind of wisdom. And in the next couple of videos, we're going to be going into greater detail of this wisdom that's from above and how do we receive from her. How do we show up to this party and eat of her bread and drink of her wine? Thanks for watching this. And this is the revelation of Jesus Christ through wisdom.